How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, giving you guys your November 2018 horoscope for Leo. What is up, Leos? Oh my gosh. Okay, so let's get into it. November 6th is when we start seeing some action. Uranus is going to retrograde back into Aries on November 6th. And so Uranus has been in your guys' 10th house now for a couple months. So you've seen Uranus kind of shake up some loose ground in terms of career, in terms of your public vocation, what you're kind of doing, how people are kind of seeing you. Uranus is kind of making this sporadic and energized. But as he's been retrograding and he goes back into Aries, he dips back one more time into your 9th house, where the 9th house is going to be more about your beliefs. It's going to be more about, the 9th house is like, higher education, learning, far distance travel, foreign things, and stuff like that, spirituality, philosophy. And as Uranus comes back in here, where Uranus is all about liberation, Uranus is all about moving forward and explosions and things just kind of going out of nowhere. It's a big wild card. This is in Aries, where we're talking about movement, we're talking about spark, we're talking about action, we're talking about moving ahead and taking and kind of confronting things. And as Uranus dips back into your 9th house and kind of blows up your 9th house again for a little bit, this is going to be a really good time to use those, beliefs that are all been charged up for the past 7 years, like how you've experienced Uranus in there, and give it one more last go of it. So that's going to be really exciting because all you fire signs love that shit. Anyway, moving forward on the same day, the North Node ingresses into Cancer. Okay, so let's be honest here. The North Node in Leo has been way too intense for us, even though it's been fun and we love it. The North Node is moving into Cancer, where this is going to be where the eclipses are going to be. The North Node will be in Cancer, the South Node will be in Capricorn. We're highlighting the 12th house and the 6th house. And I'm going to talk more about both the North Node and the South Node, but I really want to focus on the North Node right now. And with the North Node going into Cancer, it's going into your 12th house. It's going into a hidden part of yourself. This 12th house has to do with your subconscious, with your dreams, with what you don't always acknowledge or what you repress, unaware parts of yourself. It's very blinding. And we're also talking about the sign of Cancer, where we're talking about deep emotions. We're talking about truth. We're talking about trust. We're talking about protection and nurturing. And as the North Node representing, the dragon's head, our kind of forward movement, I like to look at it as it's our soul's compass of where to take direction and where to go, as it's in, also, before I get into that, it's the dragon's head. It's always what we want to consume. It's where we're like hungry for in a way. And as we have this North Node going to Cancer in the 12th house, the energy is going to kind of shift where we're wanting to focus on what do we need. We're really bringing up things that we need. We need an emotional connection. We need trust. We need comfort. We need protection. And as this North Node hits our 12th house, it's going to be very much like eye-opening, things that we didn't see before, things that we didn't always acknowledge, and things that we repress. So this is going to be a good time to do a lot of inner healing work. Moving forward, though, because we're going to talk so much about that. We have on November 7th the new moon in Scorpio, and this is going to be in your guys' 4th house. Your 4th house is going to be representative of your home life, your family life, your parents. It has to deal with where you center yourself. And with Leos, you guys center yourself in that Scorpio energy of concentration of power and ability to, I like to say, navigate, even though it's not necessarily like a Sagittarius navigate, where it's being able to perceive things at the deepest of levels. And so with that being your 4th house, where you center yourself in that emotional, I don't want to say rage, but a very deep-seated energy, this new moon is going to be kind of clearing us a new space right there to have a little bit of a refresher, because Venus was retrograde there, Jupiter was there, we just had Mercury go through there. This new moon's really going to kind of settle down that energy and really give us a good fresh breath of that 4th house energy now that we've had Jupiter go through and we've had Venus retrograde through. Moving on, the next day on November 8th, we have Jupiter ingressing into Sagittarius. Yes. Oh my gosh, aren't you guys excited? Jupiter's moving into Sagittarius. He's moving into our 5th house. The 5th house is about love. It's about creation. It's about children. It's about art. It's about music. It's about passion. It's about really what you want to do. With Jupiter moving in there into his home sign and where he wants to be, expect a lot more of being, I don't want to say oh, you're going to be happier, but yeah, you're going to be, a little bit happier. You're probably going to be wanting to create more, wanting to experience better feelings. And Jupiter in the 5th house is partying's going to be fun. You're going to be having a damn good time. And this is just going to be, it's going to be trining your sun or your ascendant sign. So either way, Jupiter and Sagittarius is going to be great. Moving forward on November 9th, the next day, we have Mars and Venus trining. And this is important too because, sorry, let me get adjusted here. Venus has been retrograde in Scorpio for a while. She's still going to be retrograde, but she's going to be in Libra at this time. And she's going to be in your third house of your ability, of kind of like how do you utilize yourself and what you have. Has to do with your immediate environment, has to do with your siblings, has to do with language and speaking and writing and all of that kind of good stuff. And as Venus is in your third house where you're starting to kind of balance out a little bit better, your capabilities, what you can do, kind of putting more of your Venusian energy into things. Things are working out a little bit nicer and you're kind of readjusting yourself. With Venus retrograding in your fourth house, you kind of had to go reevaluate where you're kind of centering yourself on and bring a little bit more love to that, a little bit more calmness. As Venus is retrograde still in Libra, where you're still working out everything, it will be trining Mars in Aquarius, where Mars has been retrograde in your guys' 7th house for a while now. Relationships, working with people, it's just been a very hectic time. And as Mars moves forward, he's out of shadow, he's out of retrograde, he's just at the last degrees of Aquarius. He's really wanting you to help connect yourself to something else and set up healthy boundaries, set up healthy relationships with people, basically. Mars has been really kind of been like, all right, where do you need to associate yourself with? Who do you need? Who is going to give you the boundaries that you need? Who is going to establish the things that you need? Or I should say, if that, you have a person in your life like that, how can you address that situation more confrontationally, because it's Mars. And with Venus trining there, this is really just about, expressing that, what you really feel, expressing, the more fun side. This is Venus in Libra and retrograde in your third house. Like, really express what's on your heart. And it's not that it's a bad thing, express how you feel on a passionate level, on a loving level. And as it trines Mars, this is going to be a really healthy thing for you guys to be able to move forward in relationships with. Then on November 14th, Mercury will be stationing retrograde and it will be squaring Neptune exactly. And this is a pretty big deal because even though Neptune right now is, where is he guys at? He's in your 8th house, that's right. Neptune's in your 8th house, so the whole 8th house themes, which is just already weird in itself, are kind of blurred. It's all kind of just in a weird area. But Mercury's going to be in your 5th house where he's in Sagittarius, he's in detriment, he's stationing retrograde, and this is a pretty big deal because as he's stationing retrograde and squares Neptune, you're going to start to really kind of look at things in the sense of, okay, is this really what I want? Am I going a little bit too fast? What am I not recognizing as far as what does the reality of it look like? The 8th house is very much realistic, and your 8th house is ruled by Jupiter. So when it comes to all of this Jupiter stuff, it may feel a little bit overwhelming. You're going to start to not necessarily reanalyze, but you're going to feel like you're going really fast in terms of pursuing things that you want to create, that you want to do, and you really got to look at what you're not seeing and making sure that you see the reality of things, that you're not just living in an illusion that everything's fine and dandy. Not to give you a doom scope, but it's more of like Neptune can really put an illusion around this 8th house things, and the 8th house, the 8th house sucks. We want to make sure we see what's going on there so we're not, having tricks played on us like Mercury likes to do. So as Mercury squares Neptune and stations, this is going to be a big time to make sure you're seeing, even if it's a bad thing, making sure you're aware of that and not getting ahead of yourself. Then on November 16th, right after that, we have Venus going direct. So now that she's in your 3rd house, it's like, okay, using that Venus energy to your power, like being more graceful, being more fair, being more win-win, being more loving with people and expressing that and creating that value, but also creating that I like to use the word justice for Libra because it's very just, it's very respected. So that's going to be really good. Then on the same day, we have Mars entering Pisces. So as Mars enters Pisces and it enters your 8th house, this is when things are going to get tricky because Mars is very much go, 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 action-oriented. He wants to cut, he wants to fight, and he's in your 8th house of death, sex, rebirth, inheritances, other people's stuff. Like, it's a house where everything gets blended together. And with Mars going through here, that's one thing, but this is Pisces, where Mars isn't a warrior in Pisces. He is a shaman in Pisces. He is very much like, let me do this battle on the inside. Let me see how I can get through this with me. And as Mars enters Pisces in the 8th house, you're going to really go through quite the, I don't want to say the shamanic journey, but it's going to be a really good time to evaluate and experience, where you're directing your energy and what you need to cut off from, especially in a spiritual level, especially in a belief level, especially in that Jupiter type level. But then the next day, on November 17th, we have Mercury going retrograde. And as Mercury goes retrograde, it's squaring Neptune. This is when you're going to start to go, okay, maybe I am getting ahead of myself. Let me slow down and channel that Mars and Pisces energy a little bit more. And it's just going to have you really look at, okay, this is what, like, do you want to create this with Jupiter going in your 5th house? The 5th house is like on fire right now, but Mercury can get a little bit overwhelmed with it. And as it squares Neptune in your 8th, you're going to be kind of getting a little bit, you know, have a little bit anxiety over what you're not seeing or if there's anything bad that's happening. And we'll be talking about that as we go on as we get into it. But on November 19th, we have Mars squaring Jupiter. And as Mars is moving forward in Pisces, where, you know, he's starting to understand, he's starting to see what needs to be cut, he's having his experience, and it could be a little bit, you know, bad. It's kind of like Mars and Pisces in the 8th house, like a bad trip type of deal. As he squares Jupiter, Jupiter in Sagittarius is like, I want to do all these fun things, like, you know, partying and stuff like that. And as it squares Mars, it's kind of like, hey, you know, is this really what I want to be pursuing? Is this worth it? And what am I not seeing? What do I need to make clear? And this is being clear about the reality of things, how it's being aware of the duality of what can be good can also be bad. And so it's just being aware of that. And so Mars and Jupiter are really going to kind of like bring that to you and like in your face type of deal. So just expect that. Not a doom scope, but you got some experiences to go through this month, Leo. So then on November 22nd, we have the Sun entering Sagittarius, where all of the fun, like, God, the 5th house is just so much fun. The 5th house is where you want to express yourself, where you want to party, where you want to really be your own light and really be authentic. And as the Sun moves into Sagittarius, you're really going to be able to wear this. This is going to be very fun. It's going to be really exciting. And the themes of all this 5th house stuff of, you know, what you're pursuing, what you're creating. Oh my gosh, excuse me. It's just going to be very prominent. That's what's going to be where the light is shining. On that same day, on November 22nd, we have the full moon in Gemini. And the full moon in Gemini, the Gemini moon is going to be in your 11th house. So this is kind of going, okay, what do you want to pursue? What do you want to create? The moon being, you know, what we don't always see. It lights up. That's the part that it really lights up, is what we don't always see, what's in the dark, what's hidden. She is going to be in Gemini of, you know, words, of communication, of knowledge, of facts, just information. And she's going to be in your 11th house of friends, of groups, of networks, of connecting. And so this full moon is kind of like, hey, if this is what you want to create, who do you need to be, like, who do you need to connect to in order to achieve that? And really just bringing the light, like, who do you have around you that's going to help you with that? So this is really exciting stuff. Then it gets even better, but also just a little bit overwhelming too. The Sun will conjunct Jupiter at 3 degrees on November 25th, 3 days after that. And this is a pretty big deal, because when we have a Sun-Jupiter day, we're basically resetting Jupiter's cycle with the Sun. So the themes of Jupiter and Sagittarius are now more prominent. That's where we're at. That's where things are going. It's going to be in your 5th house of, you know, having fun, of creation, what you want to, you know, how to really be your authentic self is the best way to put it, especially just because you guys are Leo risings. The same day, Neptune will go direct, and that's not a big deal, but I would just like to mention that. As well, the next day on November 26th, the Sun and Jupiter will still be conjuncting at 4 degrees. They move a whole degree in a conjunction. So you kind of have a cool 2 days of a lot of fun and excitement. And then after that, we have on the 27th, the next day, the Sun and Mercury conjunction, where Mercury goes Cazimi. And as we talked about earlier, with Mercury retrograding the 5th house, kind of being like, okay, am I getting ahead of myself? Is this really what I want to do? Is this really where I want to go? Is this what I want to pursue? Is this what I want to create? Mercury will conjunct the Sun, and it's kind of like a realization of, okay, is that, like, I'm starting to be clear of where I want to pursue, of what it means to me, why I want to do it, and making sure you take the right steps for it. Then immediately after that, on the same day, Mercury will conjunct Jupiter, where it's kind of like after Mercury has a realization, after Mercury is understood, and this is Sagittarius we're talking about, and I'm going to make a whole video about this. Mercury is kind of funky in Sagittarius, but as he conjuncts Jupiter, Jupiter's like, okay, you've set your goal, you know what to look for, let's bring some good news, let's make this fun, let's, you know, it's kind of like double checking yourself, making sure you're not pursuing the right thing or the wrong thing, and then finding yourself being like, oh, let me just switch this over a little bit, and it's like, boom, that was the right answer. Then after that, On November 30th, we have the Venus and Uranus opposition at 29 Aries and Libra. This is a big deal too, because Venus is at that last degree of Libra where it's like, you know, really putting the best part of yourself out there and really utilizing that, and Uranus is in your 9th house. It's kind of like a, here, boom, like here's a better belief about yourself. Here's a better way to go about things, and things start to make sense. It's kind of like all of a sudden, boom, Venus is there. All of a sudden, boom, Uranus is there. It's like a flash bang of Venus and Libra. So this is going to be fun. It's going to be good, and I think it's going to be a big eye-opener to what your guys' self-belief and how that reflects into your capabilities. And it's kind of realizing kind of where you've been and realizing how far you've came. Also on November 30th, we have Mercury retrograding back into Scorpio, where after Mercury gets clear on his image, gets clear on his destination, gets clear on his mission, he goes back into Scorpio, where it's about pinpointing and focusing that and having laser vision focus and holding on to what it means, basically. Because when we have Scorpio, we're talking about the action of like emotions, like the actual I guess the best way to put it is Aries is action on commitment. Aries is action on like, boom, it's time to begin, it's time to start. Scorpio is kind of like, it's time to begin, it's time to act specifically. It's time to engage. It's time to, you know, get into it and involved with it. It's like time to bring out the big guns and be specific. So as Mercury goes back into Scorpio, you expect to be very like driven and very focused with your mindset. And that's what I got for you guys. That's November. So November's looking super, super fun. Just watch out for that 8th house stuff, because it will come to you and it will bite you in the ass. So just be careful. It's just about being aware, and it's just about taking your time. But other than that, we got a great November coming up. So thank you guys for watching, liking, commenting, subscribing, sharing, and I'll be seeing you for next month's horoscope.